One of your questions might be, how does someone like me get a microphone with people who've written books, have PhDs, and all those things? I don't have any of that. I don't have a PhD. I don't have an MBA from an elite school. Not that I'm against those things. But what I do have is just countless hours with college students. Countless hours, 45 to 70 hours a week, depending on what time of the year it is. Leading college students in leadership training, mentoring, coaching, having them at my house for dinner, sleeping on my couch. I'm in the dorms, I'm in the fraternities, and I've done that for 8 years. And so the people that you are about to hire over the next decade or 2 decades and have been hiring, I'm spending countless hours with trying to equip them for the next stage of life. Our ministry is very much so focused on spiritual development in college, but equipping people to go into the workplace. The goal really isn't to send people into ministry, although some will. Most of the students, I want to be in your shoes someday, leading businesses, leading in their neighborhoods and their families. And so I'm getting a ground floor look at the people that you're going to be spending time with. Maybe a different way to think about it would be, what I want to do today is to kind of go on the factory floor and help you see what life is like there. Where are the students coming from? How are they being formed as people, as leaders, as thinkers? And how is that going to affect when you interact with them a few years from now? And so to kick us off, I want to tell like a little fictional story, I suppose. And it's taken from one of these books, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, which is a must-read book. I mean, for even outside these purposes, I highly recommend The Anxious Generation. And Haidt tells this story as he tries to articulate why digital technologies have reshaped basically people who are my age, 30 and under, for all intensive purposes. And what he does at the beginning of that book is he lays out this fictional story of a group of kids who signs a contract on their own to live on Mars for a season. And they go about, and his purpose is basically to talk about how internet contracts start when you're 13, and it's inappropriate because of how much it will change you to go on the internet. But I want to alter the story a little bit, and I want you to imagine that we take a whole generation of American-born students and kids, and we send them to a different culture, whether that be sub-Saharan Africa or East Asia, and they have to be born there and raised there. And then 22 years later, you have to hire all of them. The government comes in and says, those are the only people you can hire starting this day forward. What are the issues that you're going to run into? If you've taken a sociology class in college or high school, you know that there's going to be language issues. There's going to be different values for how they think about commitment, how they think about time, how they think about what is important and what's not important, and how to determine those realities. Where do they spend their time? What is consuming their time? How are their anxieties coming out in their life, and where are they being produced from? Some of you have grown up in different cultures that have that experience by living in the Midwest, living in America. But what I might suggest to you is that some of you've spent time with your kids, your grandkids, or maybe that guy that sits in the cubicle next to you, and you've wondered, why are you so different? And I want to suggest to you that you're not crazy for thinking that. I think oftentimes people who are generations beyond the current generation, Gen Z, think to themselves, I'm probably the one that's just stuck in my ways. And maybe that's true. But what I want to suggest to you today is maybe there's something categorically different that happens with the introduction of digital technology, primarily your phone, that's what I'm talking about, and social media, that's changed the course of human development in a substantial way, unlike any course of development and change up to this point. And so that's the backdrop of what I'm talking about. And maybe the last kind of thought here before I get started, I feel like an intergenerational person for a simple fact is that all these books I'm talking about, all the research and the generation that I'm spending time with, they're in my generation. They literally talk, it's my dates, you know, starting college in the fall of 2013, graduating May of 2017. That's me. That is exactly me. And so this stuff's written about me, but I had the privilege of being adopted and raised by my grandparents. And so I have a generational gap in parenting. I saw life differently as I grew up in a small town in Illinois, and I avoided some of this experience and exposure to technology into ways of thinking that have been so common to the current generation. So I feel like an insider and outsider to some degree because of those realities.